Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for February 6, 2018 at 6 o'clock. This meeting is being recorded and televised. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Agenda looks relatively short this evening. A couple of things just to be aware of. Tammy Warnes usually shows up for our open time for the public. She has the flu. So, just so everyone
feel better, Tammy, if you want to.
Yes, Tammy, we're all hoping for you here. I guess we don't have any appointments, we don't have any hearings. So how about the selectmen or select board? Do we have any reports?
Attended the finance committee meeting last night, and we're going to start working with Ed on the new budget process. Well, I did have some notes from there. We'll bring them up later.
Council Energy meeting is Thursday, and they're going to be looking at the position, so there'll be more to come on that. And, conservation is just Sean Glendale, which I think is
I got a question. Did we find out if there's a video on the new open meeting law changes? We had asked about that.
We were going to have Copeland and Page train the staff.
Right.
Bob was going to schedule all that, and it's sort of been left in limbo at this point.
How come
thought
that
they already
did
had it.
come in, but they did a morning session?
Right, and that was videotaped.
So where is that?
Where is that? That would be ECAT's question as to where that tape is.
If we can find out and put it on the website, there's several people who would be interested in viewing it.
And there was a video on that training. Okay. You want to go back to Kathy Lynch and find out?
I will find out.
You want
Get a
to,
copy of it.
want to put your microphone on? Thank you.
Is that better?
I like that.
I will go back to ECAD and find out.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Yeah, it's on the expense and revenue, but I'll wait till
All right. Town administrator's report.
And first of all, I'd like to let the board know that I've signed the letter of intent on behalf of the select board to purchase a portion of the right-of-way from the Pioneer Valley Railroad Company to be used for the Greenway project. A copy of that letter is in your packets. I'm delighted to be able to do that and let you know that information within the first month of being here, because my understanding is that this has been going on for about a decade of trying to move this project forward. So I think that's a good first step. I'd be anxious to move forward and negotiate an actual purchase and sale agreement for the town. And also just like to acknowledge that Mike Bueller is here from one of the Greenway committees. And Mike, do you have anything that you'd like to update the board on as far as
Can I just ask, was
project?
that issue with the extra expense that was showed up, was that addressed?
I mean, the fees that they were trying to tack on? Yeah, they're
Yeah.
gone.
They're gone.
They're gone. That's why we were able to sign the letter.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
No, we said you got to be kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is very exciting. We are as close as we've ever been, or closer than we've ever been to actually acquiring this rail corridor, which of course is just the beginning, because then we get to start talking about design build. But it's a very exciting moment. And I just want to give you sort of a sense of what's next, because now we have a lot more work to do.
Mike, you're the chair of the committee?
I am.
Okay,
My apologies. Mike Bueller, 88 High Street, Chair of the Greenway Committee.
thank you.
So we, going forward for the next few months, we have to proceed. I see us proceeding on actually 4 different fronts. First, we have to, of course, continue negotiating with the railroad to nail down a purchase and sale / rail banking agreement. And I suspect we'll begin doing that very soon. Second, I think, as you know, we need to begin reaching out or continue working with Representative Cocott to find the $340,000 required for the acquisition from the legislature. And I'll come back to that in a moment because I have an ask for you guys. Third, we have for years now been in kind of steady communication with the Mass DOT, in particular the district up in Northampton, to get ourselves on the tip sheet. And we have sort of intermittent communication with them, but fairly regular. And we now have, some of you probably know Paul Fergal, if I'm pronouncing his last name right. I know he's on at least one other town committee, and he's a civil engineer, and he's just joined our committee, praise be, and because he understands that world and that process, which I certainly don't. So he'll be our interface with DOT because they're not part of the process right now, but we want to make sure we acquire it in a way that is sort of forward compatible with working with them down the road. And last but not least, I'm thinking about re-engaging the Friends of the Southampton Greenway, because I think we're close enough to acquiring the corridor that it's time to begin sort of reopening the communication with the people of Southampton, because we've almost gone quiet for years now. So those are sort of 4 fronts we'll be proceeding on over the next few months, and we'll keep you all updated. I do have a particular request though, and my memory is so bad I may have already made this, but if I haven't, it would be very helpful, I think, if the Select Board sent a letter to Representative Kokot expressing their enthusiasm and support for the rail trail project, and offering whatever encouragement you can in his efforts to drum up some funding for us to support the acquisition. Because
We did send one thanking both Colcott and Humison. Are you talking about another one for this portion?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just to let him know this isn't just an isolated, Greenway committee, but that we have the full backing and engagement of the town. And obviously, I'm happy, if there's any value to my input, I'm happy to give you a few sentences, but it would be very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Because once this is signed, I will be forwarding him a copy of the signed letter of intent, because that is the document he's been asking for.
So maybe we overlay the letter of intent with our letter.
Sure.
With what, John?
When we said the letter of intent, we have a letter from the Select Board saying, thank you, we appreciate your continued interest, et cetera, et cetera.
Ed, could you draft that up?
Certainly.
You need a motion, Charlie?
If we have a motion, I can't vote.
That's okay, 3 of us. Do you need one or no? Okay. Is there any special wording that you want us to put in there?
Dear Representative Kokot, we very much appreciate your ongoing support.
No, if there's buzzwords you thought.
But beyond that, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's probably all of 5 sentences referencing the letter of intent and his request back in the summer for some kind of written documentation of the railroad's intention to go forward. And that with that in place, the ball is really in his court. And of course, we're available to provide whatever support or information he might need, including schlepping out to Boston if it would be helpful.
No, I was at a meeting with Peter, and he said that he would really like to see actually a P&S. I know a letter of intent, is that going to lead to a P&S?
It should.
Okay.
That's the
Should.
plan. So
He was really adamant about, show me a P&S, I know they're serious.
So in our conversation with him, when we last met with him over the summer, he said, I need something signed to show my colleagues. I subsequently ran a draft of the letter of intent by him that is very similar to what the final document. I said, Peters, this do the trick? And 10 minutes later, I got back an affirmative response. So it's currently my belief that this letter of intent will be sufficient for him to get the ball rolling. If not,
Perfect.
we'll deal with it.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So can I answer any other questions?
You received an email from me about 2 weeks ago with the Board of Selectmen that listed all the TIP programs or projects that are being funded, and it also included Southampton. It also designated that in 2019-2020, there's about $6 million being held aside through DOT to fund construction.
I did.
I'm hoping you did. I know you bounced back and forth asking me where this money came from.
I've never made a secret of my ignorance of many parts of this process, and I'm sitting down with Paul Fergal, who I mentioned earlier. Next week, we're going to have a meeting, and I'm going to say, Paul, walk me through this, including this email from Charlie. What does it mean that there is $6 million on a list somewhere?
What it means is the Metropolitan Planning Board, which I'm part of, puts together the priorities for the next 5 year in transportation in the region. Part of that priority was this greenway.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that in 2019, 2020, that money is being held aside, earmarked, however you want to phrase it, for this project.
So what has to happen for that
You will need to
money to
first-
be unlocked?
You will need the property. You need to purchase the property, which is the key. And then you will need to have at least 75% of the design work done and approved by DOT.
And is that funding only available for a certain time frame?
If it sits idle for a number of years, and it will be reassigned to other projects. It doesn't mean that you have to spend it in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
but it means that if you went into 2024, we'll say, it probably would be going to another program.
Okay, so let's say since I have zero experience with design processes like this, let's say we close on December 31st of this year.
Mm-hmm.
How long might we expect how long might we expect it to take to get to 75% on something like this?
I'm not a
Given that
design
it's-
engineer, but if you want an educated guess, you're probably looking at a year. That sound about right?
Sounds like a very good estimate.
Yeah. I've noticed everything I do in this town takes about a year before you actually see something. But
Sounds optimistic to me.
all kidding aside, well, the optimistic part is the fact there's actually money that's
Yep.
been earmarked. This is the first time there's
So if
money.
we go to them with a corridor, with title to the corridor, and a 75% design, that opens the safe? Is it that straightforward, or?
It moves you forward. Then you'll move up a notch, and then you have to complete the design. Once the design's completed, it's approved by DOT, then the next thing that happens is DOT will start putting it together to go out to bid.
Okay.
We're doing this presently with Glendale Road. Prior to that, we did it for College Highway and the Safe Routes to School. You're basically third or fourth on the list of projects in this town.
Okay, so we have to find the design money, I'm inferring.
Yeah, you won't get this money to do your design.
Okay.
That is something you need to talk to the town administrator about, but get to the point of the purchase and sale.
Yes, sir?
You asked me, Mike.
Yep.
I'm telling you.
Okay. So, yet another to-do for a few months down the road is starting to think about where we're going to find the design money.
And how much that's gonna be.
Yeah. Okay. Any other either information to share or questions you'd like to pose?
We're just trying to help you in the background.
Well, you're doing great. Okay, well, as always, thank you all for the support. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any thoughts, Ed?
No, I think covered it very well. I'm anxious to move this project forward.
I want you to know this has not been 10 years.
No?
Just for clarity, I can remember 20 years back.
That's even better.
Yes. My short-term memory's going, but long-term memory's still here. Okay.
All right.
Let's see.
I'll do the rest of my report.
Okay.
Let you know I was invited to tour the Norris Elementary School on January 31st. While I was on the tour, it was noted that the second boiler has started to leak in the same manner as the boiler that was just repaired. So just to give you a heads up, we can expect that we'll have a funding request to repair the second boiler included in the Norris School's capital request for fiscal year 19.
Can we do that with the Green Community Grant?
I don't think we can do repair.
I thought we could upgrade. I thought I
Upgrade,
heard about
yes.
that.
You
Well, upgrade it then.
Well, you can upgrade. The question would be, can you actually get the paperwork done, the design done, bid, and have it actually constructed and replaced for the next school year? And I'm not exactly sure if what's available would be considered an upgrade by DOER's standards, to go back with the same type, but I'm happy to look into it. The ABCC license renewals for 2018 were submitted to the state before I got here, as they were approved at the December 12th Select Board meeting. There is one hard copy of a document to be sent as backup material, which needs the signature of the members of the Board of Selectmen, so I'll pass that down for your signatures. I am working with Chief Workman on specifications for the purchase of the used trailer to be used next door at the fire station to accommodate the EMTs for the second and third shift. The highway department was dealing with some overnight icing and street flooding. Well, never mind, that's from last time, so you don't need that one.
There's a storm tomorrow now.
Yeah, then along the same thing, there's a situation awareness statement for tomorrow's storm. We seem to be right about along the line of deembarkation between all snow, which could be anywhere from 5 to 10 inches, or a snow followed by a wintry mix, which could be 3 to 5 with a wintry mix on top of it. So we will see what tomorrow has to bring. Chief Goyette is reviewing my draft letter to Mass DOT requesting a speed limit study be performed on Route 10 in the vicinity of Pomeroy Meadow Road and Gun Road. And just to let you know that actually he did get back to me today, so I have completed that letter and signed it, and there's a copy of it in your packet. Randall Kemp Highway Superintendent has received a first draft of the pavement management report from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Any member of the Board of Selectmen who would like to review it, along with Mr. Kemp's comments back to PVPC, may review the copy, which is in my office. It's not too bad. It's about that thick, but it's in my office for your review if any of you would like to pick it up and take a look at what's in it. In your packets for your information is a list of the free trainings which KP Law will perform. This was a follow-up when we were talking about wondering if they actually offered any of the training on Chapter 61 lands and the prospects of them. They currently do not offer that type of training, but a list of what they do offer for free trainings is in your packet. Upcoming, the next Board of Selectmen meetings for March will need to be determined later in this meeting, and there will be a department heads meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, February 7th at 10:30 a.m.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're going to move now into old business, community use of town hall facilities policy, page 3 for us. This has been sitting here since November 2017 to allow people time to review and make comment. I have not heard any comment from anyone relative to this policy. Has anyone else?
No?
I haven't heard anything, no.
Has anyone have any concerns with this?
I just noticed on the calendar that the Democratic Committee is planning to hold a Saturday session here.
Barbara, I recognize you, but I ask you to come to the podium so everyone hears you.
Certainly. My fault. My bad.
And I'm just, all they see is me staring off at somebody.
Okay. My only comment is that I saw in the calendar that the Democratic Committee is holding their caucus here on a Saturday, and I think that may conflict with your policy that the town hall is closed on Friday and Saturdays?
It actually already occurred, and the policy hasn't been approved yet.
Okay.
It was last Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It will affect it next year.
Whatever.
And this is the policy for people using the building,
Yes.
which doesn't necessarily mean that it precludes somebody from using the building on a day that the building's closed.
Okay. Then I guess I need clarification, because I thought if the building is closed, the building is closed.
It does say during normal business hours, weekdays and evenings, except on Fridays and holidays. Doesn't say anything about Saturday. Well, weekdays and evenings, except Friday. So Saturday and Sunday aren't included.
All right?
So we'd have to, that's number 2, we'd have to redo that.
Thank you.
Okay.
So with that in mind, maybe we should redo that where it says Saturdays and Sundays with pre-approved permission from whoever. Because there are reasons to open it on the weekends.
Oh, absolutely.
And Fridays, and evenings.
Is that a motion?
That we're going to rewrite number 2 to include all days of the week with permission on hours that are not normal town hall hours. I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Did the clerk get that? Discussion?
Hang on 1 second, I had one question. I just am bringing it up. Okay, under facility use, it says, if requested, a security deposit to the town of Southampton shall be provided. Are there any guidelines for that? It's on page 3, number 3.
I haven't read this since November. I'm not seeing anything handily.
I mean, it may be that we add on there, Rini, that deposit amount to be determined by, and have some position responsible, town administrator.
Town administrator. Keep it simple.
It just doesn't give any guidelines for
Yeah.
why such a thing would be put into place. So I guess at the discretion, is that,
At the
you're talking
discretion of
about?
the town administrator?
okay.
So I'll add that to my motion, so it's all in one motion.
I'll add that to my second.
And does the clerk follow this?
I just had a couple of other questions. Under the fee schedule, it says, first floor meeting room, one-time use, $10 for group 2.
Yeah,
Yeah. Group 2 are local students, local nonprofit groups.
Group 2, yeah, local nonprofit.
So that's local groups that are from Southampton?
Says local students, local nonprofit groups. That,
If you look-
local means to me Southampton.
Well, if you go up to above group definitions, you'll see what it means, a page above.
Student. So we want to charge students for using this building? That are from Southampton? I guess
May I suggest,
that we relook at this?
yes,
Okay, in that case, I just want to mention that there's also a typo, Southampton spelled wrong on Agenda 5.
If we're going to relook at it, let's not put as much time in between, because that's what.
Yeah.
So if we're
Right.
going to relook at
I
it,
relooked
well,
at
at the
it.
next meeting?
what happened was is we went through a transition of town administrators.
Yeah, I remember
That's why
that.
it stopped.
Sure, believe me for that one, too.
Yep. Somebody has to take the blame here.
It's only the beginning, Ed.
Do I hear a motion to table this to the next meeting?
Well, you want to rescind your second?
Yeah, rescind my
I'll
second.
rescind my motion, and I'll
Okay.
make a motion, we table it and vote on the next meeting.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And
Do I have discussion on rescinding this?
And should is Ed, are you the one that I should send any comments to?
Yes.
I was just going to say, let's send comments before the meeting to Ed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's see. I guess we're moving into new business. Authorize KP Law to perform title work for easements along Glendale Road project. This is normal business. We're in the process of easements, most of them temporary, to reconstruct that street. We're in the process right now of contacting all the abutters, but we still will need title searches done. It's just normal practice.
This come out of the project money?
My understanding is the legal cost comes out of our general budget, because Chapter 90 doesn't allow for administrative costs.
Is that an administrative cost per se?
I'm sorry?
Would that be considered an administrative cost, trying to do the title, or can we figure out a way that it's not administrative per se and wrap it into the project? Otherwise, our budget is.
I would say this, let's vote to authorize this because we need to get the project going, and then circle back and see if we can put it against the Chapter 90.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it, but I have a question. So where's the money gonna, you said general?
Typically, it's,
Selectmen's
what
account,
I've seen is this just comes out of our legal account. The question of taking it out of Chapter 90 money, one must remember that the Chapter 90 money that we utilize is meant for us to repair our streets and highway. And so we'll be taking some money out of there if we're allowed to,
Right.
okay?
I know, but we don't have any in legal, and if we take it from the legal pot, it may come from somebody else during the fiscal year.
We increased our legal budget by $10,000 at the last town meeting.
Yeah.
And we did that on purpose because we saw that typically we average about $40,000 a year in legal bills. We had only allocated $25,000 this year. So we added the 10 at the special town meeting to try to bring us through a normal year.
And I still think if it's legitimate, we should at least look at it.
I have no problem with
Bring it
that.
back.
I'm just,
Do we have any estimate on what this will cost at all? Any
it
ballpark?
will, I don't. And the problem is, we don't know how many people are gonna donate land.
Well, whether they donate it or whether we take it by eminent domain, we have to do the same easement
Right.
for each one. And how many properties are we talking?
28?
So if it was
something?
$1,000 a piece, that could be a substantial chunk of money. I'm just,
Yeah, but I don't think it's $1,000 a piece.
I just find it hard to believe that this isn't part of the project. I mean, getting easements, putting the sidewalk, all of that is all part of the
Project.
construction of this road. So
Mhm.
why would our town have to pay, that maybe should have been learned before, because that could be significant.
That's why I think we should find out.
I think we should too.
Ed has a question or a comment.
I will double check, but it's my understanding that there is some monies that were probably set aside in that Chapter 90 monies for this project that may be able to be used for this, so I will double check and let you know.
We did set aside over $100,000 for easements and all the rest of that. So it's not like there's no money sitting there under Chapter 90. It's just a question of, can we utilize that?
Well, if it's sitting there for that purpose, seems like we can utilize it, but Ed'll find out.
But should we get it, I mean, regardless of that, do we have to get this going, that project?
Yeah.
That's what we're voting on
Yeah, we gotta
now.
move this forward.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a meeting with the DOT this Thursday on this.
Right, and we need to move forward on the titles, and we also need to move forward with appraisals, so,
Mhm.
which is fall into my responsibility, so we'll get that moving.
So
Call
can
the
you
vote.
just clarify what the motion was then?
The motion was to authorize KP Law to perform the title work for easements along the Glendale Road project.
So it doesn't say who's paying for it.
No, that's the secondary issue. We got to do it either way.
Okay,
And we think maybe we can take the money out of Chapter 90. Ed's going to find out.
okay.
Do I hear a second?
I already
Already had
seconded
that.
it, yeah.
I'm just making sure here because we've looped back so many
Give you a
times.
second.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. And we are instructing the town administrator to find out if we can use Chapter 90 money for these expenses. Okay? We have discussion FY 2019 proposition override special election, April 24th. I had a meeting with the town clerk, and tried to brainstorm what would be the most convenient day to have this special election for an override. That's the date we came up with. I don't have any further information on that because we're waiting, as Ed works on the budget, to get us better numbers as to how much this would be in that. But at this point, that's the target date, unless the board has some concerns with that.
The regular town meeting is when, May?
May. See, we have a very interesting situation here. We have a town meeting that voted to change when the date of the town election's going to be. So in order to make sure that we have an election available to vote for this override, we've picked this date for the override because we don't know, captions, if the state attorney general's office is going to approve our new bylaw change by then. So this is to ensure the fact that the voters will still have an opportunity to vote on this prior to when our town meeting is. And that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and that will allow Ed and us and Finance Committee to basically prepare two budgets,
Right.
one with the approval of the override, one without.
Yeah, it's extra money that we gotta put forward. Yeah, it's gonna be, what, 2,000 or so? And
Yeah, that's
we
a good
normally
number.
have it after, so if the town meeting doesn't pass it, we don't have to have the special election. But we were talking about doing two budgets, and that's the reason we need to do it.
Yeah.
Or we can prepare two budgets without the special election, and then if it passes that town meeting, then roll it out for a special election
Usual
after
time.
that.
And if the special election fails or passes, we'll have to go back to town meeting to readjust our budget.
Well,
Why
no,
can't you-
the election would be based on the fact that these two budgets are passed at town meeting, and depending on the special election, which one will go into effect, the election will be determined at.
I swear, you just like to make things more complicated.
Well, I mean, I hate to
Well, it's
spend a
saving
couple
money.
$1,000
$2,000.
by putting the horse before the cart in one way, you know. And then we want to talk about how we want to structure the override, which is a whole
Mhm.
another issue. So, I mean, we know with everything that passed at the town meeting, we're going to be in dire straits to find all the funding we can. And if this is a couple $1,000s and we don't know if it's going to be well spent or not, why not do it after the town meeting? Especially how we know how Proposition 2.5 overrides do in the town. I'm going on history, I think
Over
putting it
30?
after. What?
I think over 30, I think roughly is what we're at.
We're
So-
pretty consistent.
Yeah.
My money would be on putting it after, but, as I like to say, on one vote.
I'd like
So
to
would you
hear-
just review then what the sequence would be then, John?
Well, we'd have the town meeting in May, and if it passed at the town meeting, we would schedule a special election as soon after that as possible. How many weeks do we have to have
Okay,
notice?
wait a minute. If the bylaw that we voted on passes,
Mhm.
the Attorney General's office,
Yeah.
prior to the curfew date, because we have to give the town clerk at least 35 days' notice if we're going to take and have an election, then it'll work out all right, because there'll be a town meeting,
Yeah.
and then there'll be an election.
Right.
Right now, the way our bylaw reads, the election is before town meeting.
Right.
If the Attorney General's office, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, but if the Attorney General's office does not act on approving that new bylaw, then nothing changes.
Yep.
We have a town election prior to town meeting.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, we just strike this other election date, we just don't use it.
And
You
when
would be
will-
correct.
When will we know?
Do you know when we typically would hear from the Attorney General?
Yeah, that has a lot of lead times.
Come on, Ed, give us a date, huh?
Well, I know I talked to the town clerk, and she said that she's gonna put a request to expedite it to see if we can get an answer as soon as possible, but she's still an unknown time. They don't,
So we've got some time to
Mid-time.
decide here.
We don't have to decide tonight,
Okay.
okay?
So let's,
But as soon as we start sliding into March,
Mhm.
like the first, second week of March, we're gonna have to decide if this is going that way.
Well, I know that was a winter joke, but why don't we wait a couple more meetings?
As we slide into
Sliding
March.
into March.
You got a little extra time, isn't it a leap year?
No.
No.
And you don't even have that extra time. Took that away from you pretty quick. All right, so you want to just hold this until the next meeting?
I would.
All right. Ed, you want to just put it back on the agenda for,
I will do that.
okay.
And can we get maybe a clarification from Janine on roughly how much a special election would be? I'm remembering it around 2,000, but my memory may not be 100% accurate.
I will find out.
Thank you. I don't know about the rest of you, but I like this town administrator position.
Oh, I'm enjoying it tremendously.
It just means I don't sleep.
Yeah, got rid of that bad habit that he had. All right. Discussion of possible planning for future funding for Chapter 61A land purchases by the town.
Charlie, I'm gonna abstain. I got a couple items coming up, so I don't want to be in conflict.
Okay,
So I'm gonna abstain.
sure.
Okay, before you do that, did we want to split up the prior question into two? Like, do we want to talk about the override part and not necessarily when it's going to happen in sequence? Because the override's actually different question than if the election's going to be before the town meeting or after.
Okay, so let's go back then. You have the floor.
At the Finance Committee last night, we talked about it a little on how we want to structure it, because we can structure it as a menu, and we can structure it as everything under one. And there was different opinions, and I think both opinions have fact behind it, because a lot of people are going to say, I want this. I'll support the schools, I'll support police, I'll support this. And if it's all in one for $500,000 or $1 million, they may say, boy, I don't support it that much. I'm not going to support the whole package. Where if it was in a menu, they can say, I like this one and I like that one. Pros and cons to both. I just don't know how we want to structure it. I'd like to get some opinions.
Might I throw out a third?
Sure.
My personal opinion is you do it as one override,
Mhm.
but within that override, you list everything that it's going
Oh,
going
no,
to-
absolutely. That would be
it's going to
listed.
cover. I mean, there are some things that some people may feel strongly about supporting and not supporting.
Right.
But if you've got and I won't say a menu list that you just go down and say yes to this, no to that,
Yep.
hopefully people predominantly would support or think about supporting most of what's on that list and say, okay, well, I might not support this and that, but overall I support these other 8 items or 10 items that are on there.
Well, that was option one of what I was talking about. You do have to list everything, but some people won't support the whole menu, where others will. So I don't know if there's a good or bad way. We have such a bad history, no matter how we do it.
Okay. I was under the impression in Chapter 61, not Chapter 16, geez, Proposition 2.5 override, that when you go for the override, you can say what it's going to be for the first year, but the following year it goes into the general budget.
Right.
So this is just short-lived. So if they vote on an override, it's only going to be for that first year
Yep.
for those items,
Right.
and then after that it goes in the general
Yeah.
budget. I just wanted to be clear on that, so people don't think they're going to be supporting that for long term.
Yeah. And then it's up to the Town Administrator, Finance Committee, and the Board of Selectmen to make sure that those allocations stay there.
Correct.
So what are your thoughts on one of the two options is, and I guess if we can, I don't know if we can open it up, let a few people from the public talk. I mean, because you hear a lot of talk out there, I support this, I don't support that, or I support everything.
Well, the negative I see to this, that if you have a menu of 3 items, none of them may pass, you know what I mean? You may get a lot of support for all 3 individually, but not enough to pass.
Yep.
So if you combine them all into one option, either you vote for an override or you don't, maybe a better shot.
Yeah.
Just throwing that
The
out.
flip of a coin, I think, in my
It's
mind.
tough, yeah.
Like I said, if we had some history of which ones would pass, would be great, but,
Yeah,
We
we have
don't.
history.
yeah, we have history.
Great
Yeah.
history.
I think that people need to know the consequences and also a little bit of detail. So if it's going to be a menu, it would be Council of Aging, Conservation Commission, local elementary school. Consequence of not getting this would mean not having this position, not being able to, do whatever. I think people need to know that. I support what Ed just said, that to have it be separate would be putting too many departments in opposition, I think.
Well, that would be identified if we go to the town meeting with an A and a B budget. A, it passes, B, it doesn't.
Yep,
People are gonna see, there's the budget, there's what we're funding and what we're not
right,
funding.
right.
Then hold the override, so they'll
Yep.
know at that point. That's what it's gonna be.
Yep, I think,
Just 2 cents.
We got to be very clear on what you're getting and what you won't get.
Correct, and that would be the 2 budgets. So maybe, like John said, having the election after might
Yeah.
be.
but also have to get detail from departments so that it's clear what we're getting, what we're not going to get.
And that's during the budget process. That's why
Right,
we're going to
right.
develop 2 budgets.
Right.
And there again, this is where the town administrator comes in.
Anyone from the general audience that would like to approach this question?
Joanne Alderman, 48 High Street. The only thing I can say about it is, I think it was one of the last budgets or question of override, where there were 3 items that I think all affected the school. And I know there were a few people standing outside who said, ask me about it. I went over and I asked them about it. And one person was very good at explaining what each of the items were, why they were needed, and what would happen if you didn't get it. Well, on the ballot, it just said one item. It wasn't well explained. And if you didn't come in, if you didn't ask, and then if you didn't know ahead of time, it's like, why would I support this? I don't have kids in school. But hearing what the needs were and what the 3 elements were, I supported it. But, it didn't pass anyway. So I agree with Maureen. There definitely has to be explanation of what all of the items are and the implications. And just to put it in one little item isn't going to make it.
Yeah, I think we have to have public forums, broadcast it, have it taped there, so no matter where you are or when, you can access,
Anyone else?
So I'm Cheryl Fletcher, 22 Gun Road. So I live in a financial world, not on the farm, in my other life. And I know that when we're trying to pass a budget or to convince an expenditure, the more information, I wholeheartedly agree on informing the public however we can. I came to the meeting before the town meeting with the moderator, and it was sparsely attended. So somehow, Tammy does a great job on social media. We have the Southampton pages. Somehow, we have to convince the people that they have to be informed, that what was voted for at that town meeting. I felt bad for finance because there's no way without an override. You folks know all this. So the more information that everybody gets out, I don't care how we do it, but people have to be informed. And I think we stand a far greater chance of getting an override passed, because I think in years past, people, the school, I don't know if they can put it in their new, we've just got to
They put it in the news.
rally people forward.
but I think to your point, those groups didn't come out in force and publicize it.
I know, and then they complained all over social media after.
I know the fire department did a video and everything, and they got out with that, but
Yeah.
the schools, I didn't see a lot from them or others, so it can be us, but they've got to have
Yeah,
I think
groundswell.
the thing that happens with the schools too is that having been a parent of young kids in the school, you're in a different world and you feel like there's a lot of support, around the people that you're around, and that's not necessarily who comes to vote.
So do you wish to bring this up at the next meeting and go further?
Which part of it? I mean, I think
Both parts.
we're agreeing that we're going to support an override, and how we do it is just a technicality down the road, whether it's a menu or not, but the budget's got to be prepared so we can see what kind of money we're looking at.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
so I think we're all in support of forwarding this down the road and seeing the numbers. Is that accurate?
I agree.
Okay. Move on to the next topic. Okay, the next topic is discuss. I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry, I was just making sure there was a note that he was leaving. You're welcome.
Discussion of possible planning for future funding of Chapter 61A land purchases by the town. There's been a lot of conversation relative to 61A parcels, large parcels becoming available, or being sold, being transferred, that were under 61. And questions have been asked to the board as to why the board hasn't moved to try to secure these properties. Well, the board has been moving. The board has been working with town council on this. We've been trying to work our way through the laws so that we did this correctly and didn't violate anybody's rights. And we finally ended up with a document from Koppelman and Page that is actually 9 pages long relative to this. So I guess the first thing on the agenda is, does the board want to talk about right of first refusal or talk about funding of purchasing of land?
Clarifying the right of first refusal.
I agree.
Okay. Like I said, it's 9 pages long, so I'm not possibly going to read all this. But basically, the way the law reads is land taxed under this statute shall not be sold for or converted to residential, industrial, or commercial use while so taxed or within 1 year after time, unless the city or town in which the land is located has been notified of the intent to sell, and basically giving the town the right of first refusal. The interpretation we got back from the law firm of Koppelman and Page is that if someone purchases this land and keeps it under 61 for a year, that right of first refusal disappears. I am not an attorney. I am not going to argue that that's correct or not correct. I'm just going to tell you what the law firm advises of. They also went on, like I said, it's 9 pages long, but given the uncertainty in the law at this point, it is safe to say that the town that desires to challenge the owner's determination not to give notice the town's right of first refusal would need to pursue relief in court. And it goes on to explain this, and it finally finishes off by saying, in any event, these cases may be costly to litigate. So the question becomes, does the town wish to file an action in court against a new purchaser of a property to challenge this right?
Well, and another thing that they said was they cited a case whereby there appeared to be evidence through actions taken by the buyer that it was clear that there were intentions to change the use of the property. And so therefore, in court, they determined that, in fact, because there were a sequence of meetings and events and things that happened, that it was clear from the get-go that this was going to be changed. But basically, what we were told is that buyer can buy it, not do anything for a year. We don't get first right of refusal. But there is some possibility of being able to litigate if it appears as if actions are being taken to change the use of the property. And it's expensive.
Right. We were hoping that the seller had to notify us under 61A, but after a lot of conversations, the seller doesn't have to, which happened in a couple cases in town.
It's ongoing. It's
Yeah.
not just a couple, this is
Yeah.
gonna be ongoing. I'm going to let the public speak, but once we get
Yeah.
Yeah.
through this.
And I remember, April, when you came up to the podium and you gave dates and so forth, and it was clear that there was an intention all along, and so maybe there would have been a case and such, but that's the clarification that we got, that there was a circumstance where a town did contest that, similar to some of the data that you presented, and they found that there was an intention from the get-go to change the use of the property.
So we'd have to bring it to court, get a finding in our favor, and then have a source of funding to buy it at the end of that.
And that's the other key to this. What is our source of purchasing the property?
In any of
Any
the
property.
tracks out there.
Any property. This 61, just to engage a little bit, has been going on for years in this town. No, it's not going to stop with problem A or project B. It's going to be ongoing.
We're on the market right now under Chapter 61.
No. But we don't have a funding source.
And that's another conversation we want to have.
So, unless the board sees otherwise, I'd like to open it up for public comment.
Sure.
Before we talk about the funding? Sure.
Well, I've brought, excuse me, Christina Madsen, 36 Rattle Hill. I've brought a document that I'm thinking might help to clarify this or further exemplify it. And I have it. It's the court record of a Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court case.
Which town was it? Because I think we,
The town of Sudbury.
yeah, that's the one that was quoted.
Yeah.
It's
All
a-
right. Well,
You might as well pass them out since you got them.
Yeah.
I have them.
Thank
and
you.
I would like each of you to
Please.
have a copy, and I'm just going to use a few minutes to read some of the statements, some excerpts that I think are very pertinent to the situation that we have in Southampton. So under Chapter 61, and we're speaking of 61A, 61 and 61B. And this is a court case for 61A, but the language in the conversion regulations is very similar. So I think because the parcels that are currently up for sale are 61, not 61A, although that is what is listed in the real estate listings. So this case is indeed regarding 61A. Have you all read this court case?
Not the whole one, no.
Okay. So I'm just going to read a few things. Under 61A, Section 14, the landowner agrees that the land will not be sold for or converted to non-agricultural use unless the municipality is notified of the intent to sell for or convert to such other use. The municipality has 120 days after notification to exercise a first refusal option to meet a bona fide offer to purchase, or in the case of conversion to non-agricultural use. That means it's not sold, it's just the owner who is converting. It allows the town to purchase the property at full and fair market value. So even if a person, well, let me go on. And this will answer your question a little bit about funding, perhaps. And for a period of 120 days subsequent to such notification, said city or town shall have, in the case of an intended sale, a first refusal option to meet a bona fide offer to purchase said land, or in the case of an intended conversion not involving sale, an option to purchase said land at full and fair market value to be determined by impartial appraisal. After a public hearing, said city or town may assign either of said options to a nonprofit conservation organization. A town's right of first refusal ripens into an option to purchase when the town receives notice of an intended sale of land under 61A for a non-agricultural use. The statute contemplates that buyers and sellers will act in good faith and will notify the town if a sale for such use is intended. If a sale for non-agricultural use is consummated without such notice to the town, then the town's right of first refusal endures. Scott and Brendan Holmes, who are the defendants, argue that only an actual change of use should trigger the town's right of first right of refusal. The statute states otherwise. Under the statute, the town's option to purchase is triggered by notice, not by an actual change of use. And notice must precede the sale or change of use. The town's right under Section 14 to be notified of intent to sell for non-agricultural use necessarily includes notice of a buyer's intent to acquire land under 61A where the buyer has no intention of continuing the agricultural use of the land. The critical intent is the intent to discontinue agricultural use of the land on acquiring title. And we know that developers have purchase and sale agreements on these lands. In most cases, if not disclosed before sale, that intent will become evident soon after sale when the new owner begins a process of conversion. However, there may be instances when the new owner will continue the agricultural use for a brief period after sale to conceal his true purpose with the intent to defeat the town's right of first refusal. A town that can establish such intent as of the day of the sale and a failure to give notice is entitled to specific performance of its option to purchase. The legislative history supports our conclusion.
Can I ask what's the date for that case?
2003.
Now,
And the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court found in the town of Sudbury's favor, in saying that it is not only the intention of the seller, but it also is the intention of the buyer to indicate that that conversion is going to take place, and that does trigger the right of first refusal.
May I address the question you just raised based on the town attorney's opinion?
Mm-hmm.
The town attorney reviewed that case and put it in this 9-page document, and I will take the liberty of reading that paragraph.
Okay.
As the Sudbury case demonstrates and establishes a buyer's intent is a specific case, or case-specific, in fact, intensive inquiry. In other words, this was a unique case that they reviewed. Important since the Sudbury case was decided in 2003, Chapter 61, 61A, and 61B have been amended because of that case to provide that land taxed under these statutes may not be sold or converted to a residential, industrial, or commercial use while so taxed, in parentheses, or within 1 year after the time. Previously, there was no time frame given during which a town must be provided with a notice of intent to sell or convert. It may be that the 1 year period is now a safe harbor. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but basically what they've done is establish this 1 year. And if the conversion does not take place during this time frame, the right of the town to acquire the property may not arise. This issue has not, and to my knowledge, been determined by the courts. Basically what happened is, they went to court, the ruling was in favor of the town of Sudbury. The legislators saw a problem with the law, so they rewrote the law. And they put this safe harbor in of 1 year. This is my reading of it as a farmer, not as an attorney, but that's my reading of it. So now what town attorney's telling us is, if we want to pursue that, we are going to have to litigate this just like the town of Sudbury did.
Yeah, I mean, as we read it before, the change in the law weakened it from the town's point of view.
It did. It did.
Yeah, because anybody can sit on the land for a year. I mean, that's not hard to do.
Well,
You're welcome to a copy of this. In fact,
I would like a copy of it, thank you.
Ed, if you don't mind posting it on a town website. This just came in yesterday, I think it was.
And when was that when were the Chapter 61 laws rewritten?
All it says it's after 2003.
Could we find out a specific date, please, on that, when they were rewritten?
You can go to the Mass Law Library, and you can contact the librarian. They'll do it for you for free.
Or you can go right online, look up the law, and it'll tell you when it was amended.
It basically comes down to two issues in my mind. One, if we want to pursue any of these lands that are coming out of 61, we're going to have to litigate them if they don't take and submit anything within a year. The second question, which I think is even a bigger question, is how we're going to fund purchasing them if we did get to the point of first refusal.
All right, well, I will say one thing about purchasing, and I'm going to address the College Highway parcel in particular because it is one that the town it's a parcel that the town needs to have. There was nothing thought of requesting over $1 million for site preparation for a rather inadequate site behind the fire station.
I take exception to that. There was over 12 years of work done by two different committees.
Oh, okay, well, excuse me, but you didn't think anything of asking for $1 million for site preparation for that. $1.2 million for 56 acres of prime land, I feel quite sure that the residents of Southampton would be willing to fund. So that is my opinion on that. I'd like the opportunity as a voter to be able to vote A or nay. Why not give us a chance to purchase that parcel? The other thing I would like to say is that I know from reports from our representative on the Historical Commission that the Public Safety Committee contemplated the taking of land with eminent domain as a way to get land for the public safety complex. And I would say that the College Highway parcel is certainly one, if it turns out that we don't have right of first refusal, that you consider taking it by eminent domain. So I would like a copy of...
You can have my copy.
Thank you. Well, I think probably you want to...
I can print it out. I have it electronically, so it's just...
Thank you.
I don't have copies for everyone, but I...
Also, I'd like to say that it does say that you can transfer. I did read in the notes that the right of first refusal can be transferred to a conservation organization. And Mark Walmsley from the Kestrel Land Trust is here tonight, and he might be willing to explain a little bit about that.
Or not.
Or not.
Mark Walmsley, Kestrel Land Trust. Nice to see you all again.
Good to
It's been
see
a
you again.
while. I don't know if we've actually done a right of first refusal recently, but that is the case that Christina mentioned. The right can be assigned to a conservation organization like Kestrel. Of course, that's incumbent upon us, having the money to actually use it. Each situation is certainly different. Each property, our interest in the property, the cost of the property. We can often borrow money to consummate that purchase if need be. But of course, would be borrowing from a bank and they'd want to see some sort of takeout plan for Kestrel, be it a future CPA vote or the initial vote by the CPA committee or something like that, or that a grant has passed along to a certain point to the state. Or another option, which we haven't used that much but is always possible, is a conservation buyer. If a town really wants to see that piece of land conserved, and we know of someone who wants to buy it for conservation purposes and they have the money, or there's a possibility of a combination between a conservation buyer and some money from the town, we could put together a project like that fairly easily. And we do have individuals like that come up to us and let us know, particularly about individual properties that they have interest in. So I guess I would say that if you have any interest of exercising your right of first refusal and you think you can, feel free to contact us at any point and we can at least talk through potential options with you. We'd be happy to.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
April West, 54 strong. I just want to thank you all for listening to what I had to say a few meetings back. Since then, I've done a little bit more digging, and I've done a lot. In my real estate career and in my banking career, I've done closings on real estate for over 35 years. I know what documents are expected to be recorded when you close on a piece of property. On the Strong Road parcel from Mr. Gorel to 777 LLC, there was no municipal lien certificate recorded when that deed transferred title. The deed was transferred subject to Chapter 61A, but there was no taxes. The assessor's office had no say or no taxes or anything that were being recorded at the time that deed transferred. That land was in Chapter 61, and a year later, 14 months later, that Chapter 61 lien was released right before part of that land was sold to another builder for $375,000. So 777 bought it for $583,000 and change in April of 2013. And they sold part of it to another builder in June of 2014. Then there were some rollback taxes paid. But rather than rollback taxes being paid on $583,000, the purchase price of that property, the value of that property, the rollback taxes were paid on $121,000, as if it were one building lot. And I think this town left several $1,000s in taxes, back taxes.
Is that because
on the
part
table.
of it remained in open space?
No.
And it wasn't just the part that was sold off for
Correct.
that street?
Correct. No, the release for the Chapter 61 property, there were 2 Chapter 61 filings. There were 2 releases filed right before that transfer of some of that land went to the builder. At the same time, a road was going in for another 12 house lots in that new subdivision.
We can certainly learn by what has occurred.
That's all, yeah, that's all I'm
And I-
really asking.
And I appreciate that.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to throw poor Ed under the bus, but now that we have a full-time town administrator that's very versed in many different levels,
You're bringing up the next point that I was going to bring up.
we should get rid of him?
No, Ed.
Oops.
Ed, on On April 2013, that deed was filed. In June of 2013, a subdivision plan was filed with the planning board. So why was there no communication while this land is still in chapter between the planning board, the select board, the assessor's office? Why weren't those chains of communication open? So this is what I would suggest, that the town administrator, who hopefully knows what's going on between boards all over the place, will be notified and will be able to notify the select board and the assessor's office when something like this happens again, because it's going to continue to happen. We have large tracts of land that are available.
It's happening. We know that. We all know that.
Right.
And one of the reasons we hired an individual at this professional level is because we never had that professional level before, because of the activity in the town, the whole activity of the town.
Right.
So I'm optimistic.
I hope so.
And plus, we all sit on different boards, so hopefully one of us is on that board when that happens and brings it back here, because you're right, that's within 2 months. That makes no sense at all.
Right. So I'm willing to go to our legislators to try to turn around the Chapter 61 loophole, because it sounds like there might be a loophole that's being used over and over and over again in this town.
In
But
the
there,
state.
It's in the state. The whole state's going
I
through it.
understand that, but I do not believe that Koppelman and Page's opinion is completely accurate, because there are attorneys in this area that file the notice of intent to sell on parcels here in town, like they're supposed to do. I've just heard of one, a realtor friend of mine can't close on a piece of property because the town hasn't signed off on, hadn't gotten intent to sell in a chapter property and needs to release that piece of that property before that sale can happen. So there are certain attorneys are abiding by the rules and other attorneys are not. And I just would hope that the town of Southampton can somehow figure out how to exercise our right of first refusal on these parcels so that we can prevent, mass tracts of land being sold to developers without having the right to exercise our right of first refusal, without having our first option on these properties. That's, for $100 a year for 50 years on a parcel that's 50 acres of prime commercial property on College Highway, it's only fair that the town get the option to buy it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Marla Hank, Gilbert Road, Chairperson of the Conservation Commission. One of the questions you had is how does one fund it? Well, certainly, depending on if it's for open space, the Community Preservation Committee is an option for us. Of the parcels that are most recently in question, but all over town, as you had indicated, many of the parcels are contiguous to already conserved property. We are always looking for increasing contiguous space. It makes corridors for wildlife. It keeps the water running smoothly. So depending on, well, as you know, one of them is adjacent to Wolf Hill. That's a big conservation area. We'd love to have it expanded. That's just one example. So between working with Kestrel and other land trusts and community preservation, that is certainly one option, and we would be very interested. And obviously, there's a reason we're one of the sign-offs on the right to first refusal.
Now, when you hear the first refusal, you get to see it. The problem is we're not seeing this action.
I am well aware of that.
And what I'm understanding through town attorney is we would have to litigate the challenge any transfers.
But, and I'm not saying we have the money to do that, but otherwise, if you don't, then every single property could just disappear. So what's the point of having Chapter 61? Why bother I understand the Chapter 61, but what's the point of the right to first refusal if all you have to do is sit on it a year?
Oh, it does sound
Clearly, there is a problem.
There's definitely a problem.
Yeah.
But
And it's also a problem that it's being interpreted in different ways, too. If some attorneys feel that there's no obligation for a town to receive right of first refusal,
I
and
understand.
other ones don't.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying a source of money would be community preservation, depending on the use.
I'm going to guess every attorney in the transaction knows what the buyer's going to do with the land. I mean, you know.
I would like to just weigh in this way, too. This has been a pattern. It is ongoing throughout the state, but very much so in Southampton. And maybe if there was one case, one litigation, it might set the stage for the developers not to keep just assuming that they can get away with not offering the town the right. Maybe it's about time that there was litigation to shift the pattern. Thank you.
Our concern is that Cheryl Fletcher Gun Road, that all 3 Wayne parcels, right from the get-go, we called, I get it, I understand all of it, we've done lots of homework on this, but it was very clear that the intent on all 3 of those parcels, right from the real estate listings, right from day one, is not to keep the land in forestry or in agriculture. And so it's terrible. I don't know how the town would afford it, but we've reached out to lots of land trusts. Our farm is APR and Grindstone is APR, and the College Highway piece sits between the 2. We have spoken to APR for so many years about how we would rise to priority for that parcel, especially because the Greenway is involved in that parcel. That's a huge parcel. Everybody knows that it takes time to reach out to the land trusts. Right away, as soon as when the signs went up, we started calling. We called, the real estate agent, and he said, oh, they're under agreement. So I agree with Christina that if we don't, I don't know how we'd afford to go to, I'm just saying that if it doesn't stop, even with one of these parcels, tomorrow night the planning board is looking at a development on Glendale. So we've had lots of discussion. Folks feel that Glendale has so much timber and sorry if I'm not using the right word because I'm not in forestry, but that maybe there's a way that the town, if the town exercised the right, that some of the trees and what was harvested there would also help offset to be able to keep it in open space. But already we're like, okay, how can they be doing a development plan tomorrow night when we don't have the right of first refusal? And we sort of knew that this is, how it's being skirted. But it's not right, and we're going to lose some really big pieces of land if we don't at least say, challenge one of them. I mean, we can't challenge all of it, and we also have reached out to Colcott's office and Hummerson's office, and they have said, yes, this is a real problem. But for us to lose all 3 Wayne parcels to development, and one of them, all 3 of them are hugely valuable, and they've all been identified in the master plan as important parcels to the town. You're going to say, Cheryl, how are we going to afford it? I don't know, but I just think it's a terrible situation right now. And I'm glad we're finally talking about it, so.
Now, the Glendale Road property, if they're planning to build on it, and it's in 61A, and have they closed on it yet?
No, that's the
So
one that's closed.
And they'll already bring it in front of the planning board?
No,
So
it's
to
tomorrow
us,
night.
that's our first right of refusal, should pop right up on that, because they're telling us what they're using it for.
But
So
I would also argue on
Less
College
than a year
Highway.
before it's even bought.
Yeah.
Right, but I would also argue on College Highway, when we came to the meeting in November, that a preliminary plan went up on the overhead that was clearly development. Now, I realize it was public safety complex, but there was also discussion. I mean, the real estate agent, there are folks that know what the plans are up there, and so maybe if it's not developed for a year, but we know what's going to happen there. So it's deception, and the same thing on the former road parcel. We know there's perk tests being done, there's houses being planned. We know this, so this is public information, and it's just wrong. It may be legal under the 61 regulations, but it's wrong.
I don't know if it's even legal because they're already declaring.
Well, and if you read Sudbury, because I read Sudbury from beginning to end, Sudbury is, I don't know when the regulations changed, I want to look it up, but Sudbury is exactly what's happening here, exactly. And so we look, I look at Sudbury as a precedent to what we're facing. And again, I don't know how we do the legal challenge. I just think that we're at a real crossroad, that there are big parcels in town, and if these 3 parcels go by, and they're supposed to, all 3 is slated to close by the end of June, once it's gone, Mr. Farmer, we don't, you can't make more land. And I just think that all 3 pieces we know are not going to stay. And on the flip side of that, we're a town that's always screaming that we need tax money and tax incomes, and it's lousy because these people have benefited by the programs, and the town is not going to get, it's wrong. What happened on Strong Road is wrong. That was farmland, and when you look at the sequence of real estate transactions, the town lost money on that because people didn't follow proper procedure. So
Okay. Taking Glendale Road, how do we find out about that? I mean, if they're,
Well, I mean, if it's going to planning, then we'll find out what planning's doing.
but they should notify us, and we should get the first right of refusal. I mean, hopefully they're not just gonna stamp it and say, fine. Who on the plan, well,
Ed, do
yeah,
you mind tracking that down?
yeah, that's-
Let Ed follow it up
Yeah.
and go from there.
because whether we want it or not, it should come to us and let us decide.
Right, they can't come in front of the planning board before the land's even purchased with plans when it's in
Well, they can, but,
61.
Anybody can.
I mean, they can, but
the intention is right there. I mean, it's like throwing it in
Right.
our face.
All right. No disrespect, but this is the last time because I got to move the meeting on to other topics too.
Alrighty. Well, I would just say that the College Highway is a pretty similar situation where it's quite evident that it's going to be developed, and I think the town actually presented toward that end. Thank you.
Could I make one point before you move on?
You came in late, you know.
I know. Something that I was watching on TV and I wanted to make mention. The Glendale Road piece is a prime example. And I know that the developer will probably do this when you talk about how would you afford the land. And I'd be willing to throw my hat into this as a volunteer. The land needs to be logged. It needs to be forested. And the 61 is supposed to have a cutting and a management plan. And as far as affording it, I think if you had first right of refusal and you had somebody to meet with the state forester, they can tell you what you've got in there for revenue to log that land, put it in a management plan, and whether you dedicate it as town forest land and manage it over the life of the town, I think it's doable. I think it's affordable.
Do you know how many acres that is?
There's somewhat upwards of 90 acres in there.
Okay, so it's a
And I
big,
can tell you, I'm doing my management plan and cutting plan right now, and I'm shocked at the amount of material we're pulling off a very small parcel of land. So it is doable, and the developer's gonna do it anyways, and he's gonna make his money back on that land.
okay.
And the houses will be frosting on the cake is basically what it comes
Yeah.
down to. So it's just a suggestion.
Thank
That's
you.
a good suggestion. Thanks for volunteering. If you were a town moderator, I'd say no more than twice.
Yeah. I have a
Sorry, I didn't hear
you don't want to know, but I have a kind heart.
I haven't spoken to this issue yet. Barbara LaFlamme, 20 Cook Road. Rather than put the emphasis on the technical, can the town technically, or is the seller technically doing the right thing? I think what we should also be focusing on is the ethics of it. And there's been a little bit of discussion about, is it right for someone who has land under 61, 61A, and 61B to have such an advantageous tax situation for such a long number of years, and then, for whatever reason, not feel any obligation to recognize the benefits that they've received for all those years. So not only is it a technical question, but I think it's an ethical question.
You're talking about the seller, Barbara?
The seller, yes.
And even the buyer, but,
Yeah, right.
So
but
I
the
would
buyer
like,
is doing what the buyer does. They're a contractor, you know.
I would like you to put some significant influence on that particular aspect of it, because I think it is an ethical question, and I think the town of Southampton will benefit long-term, and I'd like you to give some serious thought to that aspect of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I have.
I mean, we can only have personal opinions, so we can't enforce ethics from that point of view. I mean,
Oh, but I would hope that you have some.
I personally do.
I hope you do, John.
I think that was the royal you, I hope, you know?
All right.
Because otherwise, you and me, no.
We really got to move on to the rest of the
I
meeting.
understand. Do we have the right as a town to request to exercise our right of first refusal? Now, especially on Glendale Road.
Glendale sounds
Does
like
the
yes.
town have a right to send a letter to the
Absolutely,
seller and the buyer?
yes.
Asking, I'm not an attorney, but I don't see why not.
Why is this not the job of the real estate agent? Doesn't he have a job in this thing besides to pick up the check at the end?
I can't give you the ethical and moral obligations of a realtor. I'm sorry.
Well, what April just said before you came in, Bob, was that some lawyers interpret their obligation differently.
Farm Bureau did say that as a town, we can reach out to the seller to say, they said, you know, unfortunately, it's gotten to this point, but that they said, why didn't you reach out? And we said, well, we've been sort of waiting to see, sorry, I'm not at the podium, but that we could reach out, but I think we're too far down the road.
Do you want to address that?
I don't know if we are.
I'm going to take that podium out of here.
Joanne Alderman, 48 High Street. The question is how to afford the litigation. And I think April had mentioned that, you know, going to talk to COCOT and maybe Humison and whoever about fixing the legislation so that this loophole is gone. But I know in human resources, if there's, you know, lawsuits that happen, in some cases, I don't know exactly how this works, but in some cases, if the person making the complaint loses, then they have to pay for the legal fees. So if the laws changed so that the town still has the right to litigate, excuse me, and if they win, then the party that loses has to pay the legal fees. So then, you know, it would be, as Christina said, you know, maybe we have to sue and bring legal action against some of these bad faith buyers out there.
It is my understanding of general policy in government that if the Commonwealth changes the regulations or changes the statute, it doesn't go backwards.
Yeah.
It goes from the day the legislation has changed. So any activity that's occurring presently would not be affected by any legislative change.
But you got to start somewhere.
Oh, I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying I want you to realize that, the way I understand this, we're not going to go back to, you know, 5 years ago with that. It's not going to happen. All right, I need to move this on. I thank everyone. The opinion will be put online in a couple of days or so. You have a copy, Christine, so, you know, share it, whatever.
Can I just ask what the next steps are?
At this point in time, I think if we're gonna talk about litigation and stuff, we have to do that in the executive session. And we don't have an executive session posted for that. And historically, every time we've gone to executive session to discuss stuff like that, half the people in town wanna know what we're talking about.
Well, I think they got a pretty good idea.
Well, I'm glad we had this opportunity today, then.
Wouldn't the first step be what April said, to send
Send the intent to exercise.
That will need to go to town council to see if we can do that, because I personally don't want to put the town in a position where we get sued.
I
It
think
goes both ways.
I think we should do that sooner than later.
Yeah,
Get town,
I agree.
tell them, here's what we're thinking of doing, what's the proper way of doing it?
So I'll make a motion that we send a letter to town council requesting, to ask whether or not we can send a letter to the real estate company selling the property, asking whether or not we're able to request a right of first refusal.
On,
Probably the attorney representing
On-
the seller.
yeah,
The attorney representing the seller, right?
right.
And that's on the Wayne property,
Well, why don't you just keep it without just any property?
any property.
Okay, so I'll second it for conversation. So what we want to know is if we have the right of first refusal, and if so, can we send a letter to the seller's attorney to say we want to exercise that right in general terms on any property? Yeah, okay.
And also, yeah, the lawyer should be aware of that, I would think.
I know, but we need council to review this first
Yeah.
before we take a official position, because there's always these suits that come against the town that we have to defend. That's one of the reasons our legal budget's what our legal budget is. So we try to be cautious and move forward.
So do you extend to planning board that that's what the decision?
Planning board's reviewing the plans for a subdivision. They have nothing to say when it comes to 61.
Except if it's on 61 land, they should notify us. And we do have somebody from the select board on the planning board, so.
Why wouldn't the planning board notify them to know that you can't go forward with this until?
Well, we don't,
I don't think they have the legal authority to do that.
yeah. I mean, we can exercise the right, if you're talking about Glendale, if we exercise the right, and Ed's gonna find out the process, we exercise the right, they can still go ahead, and we'll exercise the right, and then, I don't know if they have to stop until we find out if we're gonna buy it or not, but we'll find that out. I don't think we can stop them right at this second, but at least we can exercise the right.
So I hear a motion on the floor to basically instruct the town administrator to ask council if we are within our rights and responsibilities to send a letter to the buyer's attorney on all the 61 properties,
Yeah, any and all, yeah,
okay? That we have an interest in the right of first refusal.
correct.
Fair enough?
Yeah, I got it?
Even though they came back and said that we don't necessarily, we're not obligated to get,
We could still send a letter.
still send a letter
That's my-
requesting it, and it's nothing that would harm us or hurt us in any way.
That's why I want town council to
Yeah.
review it.
And also, what's the time frame once we show our intent to convert it,
Under 20 days.
to buy it, or
No, once we get the letter.
To make a decision.
make a
we have
decision?
they
Okay.
come
120
back and tell
days
us.
to make a
Okay.
decision.
That's plenty of
Did the
time.
clerk get that okay? Okay, all in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Okay, that's 3,
okay.
and 1 abstention, or vacancy, or whatever you want to call it.
And that's separate from what Ed's gonna do on Glendale.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I just want to
Okay.
say how much I appreciate people that have worked very hard to look at dates and to try to bring this thing forward. It's been hard to not be able to share while we're trying to get different opinions and such, but I appreciate your work.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on now to acceptance and signature disclosure by special municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract, James Labrie, TIF,
Before you go into there, we were gonna talk about funding possibilities
funding.
for 61A properties, or 61 properties.
Oh, you want to go back to that?
Well, we should have a funding source if we're gonna do it.
I think we need to do research on that. We've been working on this topic now for over an hour. And
It's an important topic, I mean, you know.
I'm not saying it isn't, I'm just, I think that we'll get an opinion from town attorney, we'll come back to this in 2 weeks, and that will give us time to see if there is some funding sources that are
Well,
available.
Glendale Road, it sounds like we have a clear path to first right of refusal, if I'm understanding it. So how would we fund that? Anybody know what the property is going for? Okay.
Mark Loms again. I was remiss to mention before in terms of funding, and I think this is true if either the town or an outside conservation organization exercises the right of first refusal. Going forward, I think only 70% of the property has to remain in that use, and 30% can be taken out of it. So if there is a situation where the right of first refusal was used either by us or the town, it's possible that 30% of the property could be sold for house lots or for commercial use to help fund the ultimate project. So it is something to keep in mind. And I would just also say that, I mean, right of first refusal, from what I have heard, I mean, it's a regulatory process. It's not easy to go through necessarily. I would hope that in any town, the planning board and the Concom would be looking at conservation options for any parcel that's going to be developed. It's very possible to have limited development on a parcel and have part of it conserved, and it to work out for both the buyer and seller and the community. So hopefully the town boards will have an eye out for opportunities like that as well.
While you're up there, you said there's some possible funding through the Kestrel Fund.
We can, I mean, certainly our funding comes from either grant sources, federal, state, and as well as through community CPA amounts. We can borrow funding for a purchase and a bridge loan that we have, exclusive access to as a conservation organization. But again, and we can borrow, fairly large, significant amounts, but they certainly want to see a takeout plan. So they want to see those funding sources pretty far along, either in terms of CPA votes or, again, grant applications.
So it could almost be a bridge loan from you to the town, and we could figure out how to pay it back in a reasonable amount.
There's a lot of creativity that can be done to make these things work.
What kind of time frame, if we said, hey, we're interested, we need 700,000,
it's really hard to figure out. I mean, it's easier, well, again, if there is a conservation buyer, again, a private individual looking to help finance it, it could be, happen relatively quickly. But if you're looking at CPA funds, if you're looking at state grants, you have to look at the deadlines for those individual grants. You have to look at the town meeting vote and when that would happen and plan it all out. Again, it doesn't hurt to talk about it and see if there's a, viable option there, but you have to talk about it. That's
my concern is next select board meeting is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a lot of time in this time frame, and what can we do between now and then to kind of look at our options for funding? And because Glendale to me is going to be a hot topic because it's viable right now, and whether we want it or not is a whole different question. But
and it's scheduled to close June 1st.
Right, and actually I think the Wayne property on College Highway is in May sometimes.
The one on Fulmer Road, April 1st.
Yeah. I mean, one of our thoughts was to go to the town and see if they want to do some debt exclusion for X amount of dollars so that we can draw from it. That raises the taxes, and that brings in the whole nother issue. But I think Bob was talking about the forestry. That's a great option. You were talking about taking 30% off. I mean, maybe put those two together and you're close. And then the CPC, Virginia's always willing to look at stuff like that. So, yeah, I think we should try to figure that out.
Where there's a will, there's often a way.
Right. But we got to jump on it.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Yeah. Smiling.
I don't dare want to move forward because every time I do, I go circle right back to the same point.
I think putting this aside is not something we want to do right now. That's why I'm, being a little.
Oh, I have no problem. The topic is a solid topic. There's some serious issues with this whole thing, and there's some needs of the town.
I mean, as soon as Ed gets back to us on the process for first right of refusal, I think we should schedule a meeting and meet. And,
I'm fine with that.
I mean, one topic meeting is fine with me, spend an hour or so. We don't have other lives, do we?
I'm in.
That I'm aware of.
Yeah. But seriously, once he gets back to us, let's have another meeting, post it, and go.
Mm-hmm.
You good?
Mm-hmm.
Good. You notice how it falls on you, Ed?
I've noticed.
Oh, come on, Bob. Come up to the podium.
Charlie, you and I talked about this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I had asked, would there be any interest in trying to stir up the town's people
Closer.
to come to have a meeting, to come to the school and talk about the 3 parcels? And does anybody care about it? If not, let them go.
Well, that we can do a special select board meeting.
Either that, or say, if we just, like, through Tammy Lunas, if we just put it out there on social
Yep.
media and said, hey, are you interested in this?
Yep.
Does any of this spark any interest in anybody in this town? And if it doesn't, say, so be it, let it go.
Yep.
And let the parcels do what they're gonna do. And the first person that complains, say, you know what? We went out of our way, we jumped up and down, nobody did anything, so
Yeah.
this is what you get.
But let's do that,
50 acres that the town has the right of first refusal on.
yeah. But I think you're right, let's do that jumping up and down first and see.
So that could be select board meeting at the school, and just have it be a public hearing
Yep.
of sorts.
Like we did with the private roads.
Right.
That brought a
Right.
big crowd out, yeah, fairly big. Okay, so as soon as we get the answer from Ed, we can schedule a meeting. All right, tomorrow morning, you can say, Beckett, would you take me back? It was quiet down there.
I might think about retirement.
There you go.
Oh, no, you don't.
Would you like to move forward, Charlie?
The night's young.
We know the number for pizza?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to move this forward. See what happens. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is acceptance and signing of disclosure by special municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract, James Labrie, the TIF, J&E Tool, Precision Tool and Company. Basically, this is just a standard statement that he has an interest in it. The board needs to take a vote and sign on that, if I remember right.
So this is
You're correct.
signing of the disclosure, it's not the actual agreement.
Right,
That's right.
because we can't,
Yeah, we're basically just saying that, yeah, he's acknowledging the fact that he has an interest in it.
Right, so
Yeah.
I will make a motion that we accept and sign the disclosure of special municipal employee financial interest in a municipal contract regarding Jim Labrie, TIF, and J&E Precision Tool.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
No, I mean, I'm looking at it here now, and it looks like it's filled out properly. He's saying he's a selectman.
Mhm.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. How about we have John sign as vice chair?
Signature in here and then date it.
Today is the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if I move on to the next one?
Yeah, but I think Jim should be invited back.
He probably went home.
I give up.
Oh, no, you don't. We're just, I know you were kidding. Don't worry, Barb.
Barbara, he's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, if my feelings got hurt that bad, I wouldn't be sitting
You were
here.
talking about all of us.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, but thank you for offering.
Here, put your hand down, let me smack it, you'll feel better. Oh, man. Chief, you ready?
Sure.
Excellent.
You want to wait for?
I am. I just wanted to make sure you could get up, get to the podium all right, stretch your legs, feel comfortable. Have a water, I think there's one underneath the podium.
Busy podium tonight.
I could just imagine how much debate we're going to have on weights and measure. Are we all set? Chief?
So, good news, fire department's been looking forward to some new equipment. It's been kind of a long process. We've got a new brush truck that's coming in. It's looking like the delivery date is going to be beginning of March.
We'll still have a little bit of lettering and graphics and some equipment to go on it, but everyone's pretty excited to be looking at a new truck in time for the brush season, so that's exciting.
What'd you get?
F-350.
Yep.
Yep, with a skid unit, and it's, just set up for fire department. The committee sat down just to kind of look at the different options. One thing that we did add in is a plow, so we can assist in just clearing our own yard.
Yep.
And as we go to an emergency, we can precede the ambulance to help get it in. So I think it'll be quite successful, and like I say, it's going to be a nice addition to our fleet. And the guys
What are we doing with the old one?
The old one, there's one of the trucks that we have is going to go back to DCR, so it'll go back to state because it's state-owned. The other one, if it's not in the way, we may keep it as a beater unit, that if we have to send something, because some of the reservoir, when we need to get in for extrication for getting people out, you hate to send your brand-new truck if an old truck would be a more appropriate one to get beat up going in.
So we're going to have to insure and register another truck?
Yeah, so we keep one insured, yeah, but we're reducing the amount that's insured, getting rid of vehicles, so certainly mindful of that, but I think it would be in our best interest to not just send our shiny new piece in places where you're better sending an old one. So that's brush truck. Any other question on brush truck stuff?
No water on the truck?
Yeah, there's water on the skid unit. The skid unit is actually a unit that's going to be coming with the truck. It's a prefabricated water tank, 200 gallons. It'll come with all the appurtenances for putting on a pump and suction, and it'll come pre-plumbed. Potentially, you could lift the skid unit out of the truck, use the skid unit for another truck if you were to do a replacement years down the road. Or if you wanted to take it out for the winter, so you didn't have the pump in the elements, if you're going to use the snowplow.
The pump that's going to be on there is going to be gas-driven?
Correct.
50-gallon a unit?
Yeah, GPM is, we looked at some of the high-pressure units, which they use quite successfully in Hatfield. They actually use a dual pump system. We decided not to go that route. We just went with high pressure, low volume pump, which is pretty traditional for a brush truck.
Using basically 3/4 inch line?
Yep.
Stop trying to impress this job.
Did you not want me to grill the cheese?
Yeah.
Nope,
Yeah.
I'm
Nope.
good.
Okay, forget that. I take it you have hard suction on the line?
Yeah, it'll be hard suction on that section, and then we'll also be able to pull off forestry line and connect it to it. So there'll be more than just one discharge. So one will be a pre-connected hard suction, which will probably be like a 1-inch hose.
Pumps? I don't know, I'm just curious. You still use floating pumps? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, float
Still
pumps.
have those?
Yeah, and that may be part of the equipment that we're adding on to it. That's some of that we're just hammering out, because we can't afford to get everything, but.
Handy and dropping some.
Yeah, they're extremely handy, yeah, because if you don't have a water supply, or, you're off somewhere where there is one, but it's hard to get a truck in and out to.
But those aren't new, those are gonna be just put on this truck from the.
Yeah, we may end up, we're just deciding on some of the smaller parts and pieces to go on. So there's a committee working on that and ironing out some of that detail now. And it may include a float pump.
Truck gonna have a cub cab on it, or it's just a straight
No,
cab?
it's just going to be a single. We looked at a club cab, but the problem with the club cab is the extended wheelbase.
Yeah.
And if you're really trying to get it in,
Someplace,
there's an
yeah.
additional cost. It's nice for personnel, but it really limits where the truck can get to, and we want the truck to be versatile.
Very good.
Yeah.
Where are we with the ambulance?
Ambulance. So ambulance is a bigger project. That's gone, the bid spec is huge, gone through it, combed through it, and it's in the factory being built now. We're looking at a delivery for that that'll be, they're saying last week of May. We're probably looking first week of June for delivery of the ambulance. Like the factory is out in Iowa. And then it gets delivered more locally where they do some of the trim packages. Excuse me. So that's exciting too, just because, it'll be nice to have a newer ambulance. The ride will be a lot nicer for patients, a lot nicer driving. It'll be a nice upgrade for Southampton. So we're looking forward to that.
Trailer.
I
know you and Ed are working on that, but I figured I'd
Yeah,
better ask.
sat with town administrator just to, he's drafting a bid. We sat last week, probably getting close to getting out there. He could probably speak more towards where that sits at this time.
Yeah, the chief provided me with the specs that we need, so I'm turning that into a, since it's below, should be below $50,000, we have to get at least 3 quotes. We also have to advertise on combis, but under today's rules and regulations, even though you're getting 3 quotes, you got to make sure that you're getting apples to apples. So you basically have to write the specs to the same quality as if you're getting bids. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. And we're anxious to get it in, just because we're, with the town meeting vote, we're staffing at the station for people who will sleep in recliners. So we're quite anxious to get it through. Certainly we're working close with Ed to, getting that out and staying on top to get it delivered, because the sooner we get it in, the better coverage we'll have. We're hoping in our scheduling, and what department email is March, beginning of March is what we're kind of hoping for. I could probably speak again closer to that if that's how, realistic time frame.
That quick?
I mean, theoretically, yes. Don't forget, we're not looking at a new unit that would have to be built or whatever. We're actually speccing a used, so it should be out there in the marketplace and be able to get the quotes back and actually have it delivered fairly quickly after awarding the.
Yeah. I think the emphasis on used is probably a good one, just because, it's not going to a factory to be built to specific specifications. This is really, we're just looking for something that's already built that'll accommodate our needs. So we're just, drafting a bid proposal that'll go out and really, anyone can bid towards them. That's the whole point of the bid process. And the better deal we get on it, the more money we have to do some of the accoutrements that we're going to have to, making entry into the station and hopefully a covered walkway and electrical hookups and some of the other things that we're going to need to upgrade. So
How many is this going to sleep?
it'll have 2 bedrooms. So that's, yeah, it's not a massive unit. And they're fairly, hopefully, they use them a lot for, like, when there's fires where they bring in the trailers. So they'll reuse them quite a bit. So there's not a lot of companies that will sell used ones. And we don't want to get it so old that it's really at the end of the lifespan. So, what we're looking at is, maybe 3 years old is probably a good number to work with. Something that still has some lifespan to it, but will be within our economic, be cheap. So we're not looking for Taj Mahal here, we're looking for basic accommodation.
And this is just patching until we can move forward.
Yeah, it is patching, but it gets us night coverage, because, folks,
It'd be a multi-year use for sure.
Yeah, and
No
we
matter what do,
have men and women, and, in the same room on recliners. It's just not the ideal circumstance. So this really is something that we're really trying to, work towards, and, just through help of new town administrator, really trying to do as best we can to fast track it as is reasonable. So I think we're on a good track, and looking forward to that, and hopefully we'll have more to report on that soon.
Good.
Yeah, certainly. Appreciate everyone's support. I think the department's pretty excited to be moving forward with some new equipment.
Any questions of the chief?
I just had one question.
Sure.
Chief.
Yeah.
We just got a copy of the expense and revenue report,
Mhm.
and we're under I was just looking for it now, but under wages, it looked like it was over. Is that a concern, or is it coming from a different line going between now and the end of the fiscal year?
I'd have to look exactly what your the
Yeah, I was
document.
just looking to see if I could find it. Anybody else happen to notice that?
Yeah, fire department, yeah, that was, we talked
120?
about it at the finance committee last night. The fire department wages are at 121%, and we're 7/12 of the way through, so.
Yeah, okay, and the part of the issue that we had was we really wanted, I don't know what best word for it, truth in advertising. When I'd sat with finance committee some years back, we'd always done sort of an approximation because we'd, done 70% EMS and 30% fire. But when we have a crew on duty, they could do either.
Right.
It's whichever way they go.
Right.
So we really tried to come up with something that would delineate. So if we went to a fire, it would get billed to fire. If we went to an ambulance, it would get billed to an ambulance. If we sat in limbo, it would get split down the middle. The only problem with doing that is that the fire side is more than we had budgeted for in the past. It gets absorbed, and if you look at the EMS numbers, our EMS will more than compensate for the money because it's the same people doing the job. It's just that their function as a firefighter or their function as an EMS provider is just delineated a little bit more specifically to the task.
Okay.
So the overall numbers are still in good shape.
Okay.
It's just the factual way that it's billed just reflects badly on the old way that it was budgeted, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
And this has been the same thing for years.
Yes.
It-
Yeah.
When you
this is-
combine
yeah,
the
yeah,
two.
'cause I'm just trying to be responsive to the concerns of the finance committee, which is a good valid concern. I just, we
Right.
want to see the money allocated to the duties performed.
Yeah, EMT is at 30%.
Yeah, yeah. So EMT is very good, and that's the reflection, that's the balance.
Just gonna be.
Yeah,
different
just an
line.
accounting. Yeah, I'm sorry, when you first had mentioned it, it just took me a second to recognize how you were framing it.
But Chief, in previous years, the people on staff would be totally billed against the ambulance, correct?
Well,
And now we're changing it to where
it
we're
was,
actually
it was a bit odd. When I came in back in 2013, basically your EMS wages went to daytime staffing, and then your fire wages went to everybody else, fire, nighttime staffing and standby. The problem is we do a lot of ambulance calls at night, do a lot of ambulance calls. Standby is a lot of ambulance coverage. For the fire side, during the day, even though we're paying out of EMS wages, we're doing fire calls there. So the challenge and the concerns that finance had was that if we're doing calls that are for one, EMS, or we're doing fire calls, they just wanted to see it more driven by what action was being taken.
Okay, I was just looking for when you cut that new policy in, or when.
Yeah,
when did you change it?
that
Last
really,
year and a half?
yeah, it went in last year probably, and it should have been, we just never adjusted the budget, we've just always compensated because the overall wage is still in a good position.
Correct.
It's just how it looks on paper, budget-wise.
So this is a recent change, that's why we're seeing it.
Yeah, and it hasn't been adjusted, maybe finance will adjust it closer this year from one to the other, but sometimes our EMS is easier to fund because of our revolving account, so I think is why it stayed the differential that it has.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, sorry, I couldn't make it a little bit more clearer, but
No, that's okay.
hopefully it answered questions.
Moving target in terms of.
Yeah, it is a bit.
It's not
but-
just looking at previous years and evening it out. Now you're increasing the hours.
Yeah, and we're really just trying to be reflective of the job that we're doing, being transparent with that.
Perfect.
Good. Question? That looks like a questioning face.
I was gonna ask,
For questions, right?
no more brush. I still remember getting underneath the old brush truck and welding the pipes together with your uncle.
The old Dodge Power Wagon.
Yeah.
Where's that on the agenda?
Old business.
Old business.
Ancient business.
Historic business.
Ancient business, yes. Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely, thank you all.
Thanks.
Talk about why you have vested interest in the town. I guess when you live here all your life and you're involved all the time, you always have a vested interest. Okay. Approval of fees for weights and measure, new additional categories. When we started this, basically, we have the state duty inspections and we offset this with our fees. We now have new categories, scanners. And with that, we did a little review and came up with what the prices should be based on what it's costing us to operate. And that's why you see this new category for scanners, 3 or less, 4 to 11, so on and so forth. And it's $50, $100, and $200. And I suggested that we also list a category of not listed for others. And the reason being, I've done this with many different towns, where you put that in there so that when something comes across that you haven't voted on, at least you have a mechanism to collect a fee for something, and the fee is mostly mid-range, so that, you know, you don't have to go back to the selectmen's meeting to establish a fee and hope to recoup next year. So, do I hear a motion to accept the fees as changed?
I'll make
So
a
moved.
Yeah, a second for conversation here.
Yep.
So scanners, you're talking about the point of service
Yep.
devices.
Mm-hmm.
Is that annual?
Yes.
Yep.
So a Big Y, for instance, is going to get the bigger charge, obviously.
Sure. Cumbies will get less.
Yeah, okay.
No. I'm trying to think if Bishista even has a scanner. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I looked down, and all of a sudden I looked up, there's nobody here.
He's been on a roll tonight, hasn't he?
There's less people here, sorry, Marla.
Can I ask a
In
question
Virginia.
that might not be related to that, but it kind of
We have
sounds
a
like
vote.
this? You already have a vote?
No, we got a motion and a second.
Oh, so I can talk?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
discussing.
that's what I thought. On the budget here, there is a line for weights and measures. Is that to actually
Perform this.
perform the actual
Yeah.
weight? Okay.
They go down to the gas station, they measure how much fuel is coming out of the pump, make sure a gallon's a real
We're already
gallon.
over budgeted on that too.
Are we?
A little bit. A little bit.
Did you know that? No. I didn't either.
Well, I just happened to notice because I was looking for it, and then I saw weights and measures on here. So
Well,
anyway,
ma-
it's not that big of a deal. I don't have a question around. I just wanted to see if that line item was to actually perform the.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
And the other side of it is to basically collect these fees is so that we bring in more revenue,
Right,
so that we
right.
have a balanced budget
That
with
should
that.
cover it then.
Yeah,
And the revenue goes in the general.
absolutely. Okay, motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Any other necessary business that cannot wait until February 20th, next regular selectmen's meeting?
A couple questions, and Fire Chief may have taken care of tonight's meeting, but we were going to schedule some major department heads along the way. so-
Yes, we're moving forward with that. I think Ed's going to be working on that. We're also trying to get the director from the cable access channel to be here too,
Okay.
to really talk about sounding issues and how far along they are with redoing some of the equipment.
Okay. A couple questions that came up on last night at the Finance Committee on the revenue and expenses, and I didn't know the answer to one of them. One is the school lunch. It looks like they're 162% of their budget, so they're roughly $25,000 to the negative. Does that get funded after the fact, or is this just a loss that we have to take because they go after people to pay the bills, but people aren't paying and we don't pressure them to pay? I think that was a conversation we had a year ago.
Yeah, you're right. We did have that a year or two
Right.
ago. I don't remember where it ended up though.
I'll find out from the school business manager.
Okay, if you could, thanks. And also on police overtime, that's really over, and that question came up. I'm trying to get to it now. Police overtime, about 113%, so they're over about $7,300. They asked for a reason why it was over. I didn't have an answer to that. I mean, I'm assuming it's based on the activity in the town, but at the end of the year, they need to balance.
Ed, do you want to track that down?
What page is that?
I'll be happy to.
This is
Thank you.
on page 2 of the expense report. And the other one was the highway. But again, I believe that's because of the 43 weeks, and then they'll shift off to another line item budget. Yeah, let me see, winter road expenses, that's 74%, but that's a 43-week, and then they'll switch over to the
Back to the other.
highway.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I told them, so,
because what we did was we established the highway department to be fully funded,
right,
so.
okay. That's all I had.
I just wanted to mention for those people who are not on social media that the police chief had put a notice out on Facebook that the state was supposed to come in this morning and fix some of the potholes, particularly near the fire station and down heading north beyond Cumberland Farms, heading down towards Gunn. And they cleaned it up, but then the asphalt didn't arrive. So there's not a timetable for that, but I just want to let people know that didn't get that message from the chief.
Yeah, and also, I saw a letter from him a week or so ago where he's proactively called the, what was it, the DOT? DOT, complaining about the issues with the road. They said it was our responsibility. He went right back to him and said, no, it's not, it's yours. So they gave him a time frame. So, thanks for him for following up on that.
I was talking to the chief about that. We also said if they can't get in to fix it right away, they gotta put some signage up there, maybe slow the traffic down, because as they approach the curve just before the fire station going south, everybody's hugging going the other lane, so.
Right.
Yep.
He included that in the letter.
Right, yeah, so that's good he was proactive.
Well, given the weather that's coming in tomorrow, I suspect we're not gonna see that patch for some time.
Yeah, so much for the cleaning today.
Looks good.
They swept it all out and cleaned it up and
Yep.
have to do that again.
Okay, no signatures on personnel, no license and permits, but did you not hand me something that was a permit?
It just, we approved this earlier, we just gotta sign it. So.
Yeah, it's just backup documentation that I now have to provide to the state from the actions you took at the December 12th meeting. Everything's been done electronically, the licenses have been renewed, but
So you just need a signature on this?
yes.
This is for Black Birch
No, it's basically,
and pizza?
it's the exemptions from the renewals. It's the state's new way of doing it. They have an electronic version that I go into that lists all the renewals, and you go into and you just click off the ones that aren't renewing, and then you have to give them the backup documentation and a hard copy for the ones that did not renew.
Okay. All right, warrants. I signed W-1829A2 for $2,019.35, W-1831 for $1,320,952.12, P-18-30 for $275,975.13, PD-18-30 for $47,927.68, W-18-9V for a negative $637.50. That was an adjustment on a warrant. And PD-18-30A for $169,386.81. And I see a note here, 11-16, but I don't know what that's referring to.
Oh, no, that's just the numbers on the agendas.
Oh, okay.
That was our item.
All right.
11 through 16.
Okay, so these have been signed and acted on, and this is just for the record. Other documents requiring signatures, none, we just took care of that. Minutes for approval, January 10th, 2018, January 16th, 2018. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Calendar. Selectmen's meeting February 20th in 2 weeks. Do we wish to establish meetings for March?
I thought we already did the 6th and the 20th.
6th and 20th, I think, yeah.
6th and 20th?
6th and 20th.
It's the same. All right, so Selectmen's meeting is the 6th and 20th of March. Now, you had made comment about having a special Selectmen's meeting next week relative to the opinion of Town Council relative to the 61 letter to people that are selling or buying. I'm going to phrase this. Do you want to pick a date for a meeting? Jim, you're going to excuse yourself for that one. We're just picking a date, so, you know.
You got time?
Something every night.
I said, I have nothing on my calendar.
Well, Tuesday, we have the Public Safety Building Committee,
When's that?
Tuesday the 13th.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here.
Monday is open for me. The 14th is open for me, and the 15th are open for me at night.
Yeah, the 14th and the 15th are the only ones open for me, and the 14th is Valentine's Day.
So you can bring us something. Now, what's the issue?
I think that's not open for you then.
Are you free on Monday?
Monday and Tuesday, no, I'm not around.
I have to get to the UMass.
You see hockey game on Thursday, but I can go with somebody else.
Yeah, Thursdays, on Thursday?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, if we're going to Thursday, we might as well roll into the following Tuesday.
yeah, at that point,
At that point, it's
Yeah.
like, you know,
good point.
so let's just roll to the following Tuesday.
And depending on what information comes up, if we needed a special one, we can,
Yeah, if we see we have to.
Start a little bit earlier, we can.
yeah.
Well, we have a town administrator. So if the town attorney says that we can send a letter out, we just have the town
Okay.
administrator send a letter out.
Okay,
Right. But the idea too is to have a little bit of a public forum.
Well, I know, but at
I know.
least,
Okay.
I just want to let you know, 14th is Valentine's Day. I just got a text from my wife. She says, 14th is okay with me. Thank you.
She has plans.
As long as there's flowers, dinner, no, I just kidding.
yeah, and you make it up.
Uh,
So you want to do that? Just have the town administrator send the letter if it's okay,
Yeah, we don't want to do it then, yeah.
guys?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just
Town
have the town
administrator.
administrator send a
Yeah,
letter if it's
yeah.
okay. Ed, is that okay with you?
Works for me.
All right, let's just do it that way. All right.
And then we'll have we'll put it back on the agenda though for the following.
Yeah, yeah. All right, articles for Springtown meeting, preparing a draft list. One of the projects is Pioneer Valley Mosquito Control District, should we join the district? Another one is the purchase of a new highway dump truck for $250,000. Another one is to vote to establish a town treasurer as an appointed position. These are just being put on the list, so we have a starting point of what's out there. Okay, open time for the public. Do I really need to read this to you two ladies? Will you behave and act responsibly at the podium? Then you can approach the podium.
Yeah, don't force her.
Uh-oh.
I was just asked to give this to Charlie, so ta-da.
Yes.
Where's that going?
Well, we have, everyone's talking about 61A, and I sort of sit there, camera want to grab that? How's that? We have a number of acreage that we keep permanently preserved as agricultural land, and we were asking for another sign.
We being you?
We would be my son and me.
Okay,
We have about 130 acres.
yeah. That's cool.
That says preserve farmland. How about preserve the farmer, meaning you, Charlie?
That comes later.
That's nice. Did you get that special made, or is that what you have?
No, Mark Walmsley gave it to me. That's part of what Kestrel, they have for people with
That's nice,
APR. Yes, it is. Marla Hank, Gilbert Road, representative, one of the representatives to BayPAC. I just wanted to ask you that when you get the email from the mayor of East Hampton, if you haven't already, to join her for a meeting with other elected town officials from the BayPAC and possibly other towns, to please some of you go.
For your own personal amusement, they're having their winter festival in East Hampton this Saturday, and I always get invited to inspect the chili, so I'll probably see the mayor.
Okay, well, she's going to send an email, but
Okay.
since we were there today at the meeting, I just wanted to personally ask you, I don't think you can all go, but please, some of you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
You get to inspect the chili?
I get to inspect the chili. And there's usually a number of different chilies I have to inspect. It takes a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Not a bad job there.
I'm telling you, man, the kickbacks to this job are unbelievable.
You do know you're getting recorded, Charlie.
It's all right. If they can catch me on taking a cup of chili, I'm in real trouble. All right. We're going to need to move into executive session. We're not going back into open, are we? We're not. So that means that you need to record the roll call vote.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Because we've been criticized in the past that because it dropped off the tape. So, that said, I moved that the Board of Selectmen go into executive session under Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Item 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining litigation position of a public body, and the chair so declares, and Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Item 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirement. Approval of executive session minutes, December 19, 2017. It's basically just reviewing the minutes. Do I need a roll call vote? Mr. Labrie?
Labrie, aye.
Kaneki, aye?
Martin, aye.
Roden, aye.
So moved. We are now basically taking a recess until ECAD can shut down.